to speak to topics of their choosing. Normally, it's the choice of members of the legislature to speak with a particular focus on issues in their own constituency. They will do a tour of schools or roads or some other kind of particular focus. I don't want to use my 15 minutes to do that today. I want to talk in general terms about the Nova Scotia economy. Mr. Speaker, I want to do that particularly because, so far as I can see, we're in for some pretty difficult times in the next number of years. I'm put in mind of the biblical situation in which we have come through seven fat years, and now we're going to go into perhaps 7 lean years. I hope it's not full 7 lean years, but we know we're in the start of some pretty tough times, and I'm wanting to make note of this because it didn't seem to me that the budget that we just saw come forward from this government really took a serious enough look at the economic circumstances of our province. It's certainly the case that there were passing comments in the document, but you can't read that document and say to yourself that the government is seriously worried about the economic future of our province, or in fact has structured the budget in a way that really engages with the possibility of serious tough times. Now there certainly were statements in the budget. Page 5 of the budget, the Minister of Finance made reference to the slowing U.S. and Canadian economies. And the trouble with that statement and a companion one which uses the term "these uncertain economic times" is it seems to me that they're much too soft. These terms, given what we're facing, are much too soft. Economists are already forecasting that the federal government may go into deficit sometime within the next couple of years. Now, that would be a serious change in the economic life of our nation. We have just come out of a period of 7, 8, 9 successive years in which our federal government has generated surpluses. Now, that's all been to the good, but I have to say that if the prospect is that there will be national deficits, then in fact a province that is on the receiving end of equalization and the Canada Health and Social Transfer and other benefits that flow from the general tax base throughout the whole of the country has to worry, and that's our province. That's our province. And I want to give some examples because I know that people in my constituency and people all across this province have real doubts and fears about their economic future. And I can't see that there was very much in the budget that we are choosing to vote against correctly that really responded to that in any kind of serious way. Let me give you some examples. We already know that the USA, our main trading partner, is in uncertain economic times and in fact may even be in recession. That's a serious worry. We already know that the Canadian dollar has become very high, which inhibits our exports. We know all of that, but think about some of the particular examples that we've been up against here in our province. Moyers, a factory in Dartmouth, has closed. The Trenton Works, it's closed. Well, pulp and paper plants, they're facing a very uncertain future, and they're in a situation where we have to remember that in Quebec, in British Columbia, and in New Brunswick, there have been massive closures of pulp and paper plants. We have to remember that. Our port is operating at 50% capacity. That's an enormous underuse of that. There's massive migration to Alberta. The unemployment rates in rural areas are well above national averages, well above those that prevail in the metro area. These are things that really have to worry us. Tourism is down in the Yarmouth area. This is only one part of it. We have to worry about what the future of a big undertaking like tourism in Nova Scotia is. I'll give you another example of a manufacturing facility that's closed down, the Shaw Furniture factory in Cornwallis, that closed, the Irving Mill in Weymouth. I mean, these are examples of the hollowing out of not just the manufacturing and industrial sector in Nova Scotia, but in fact weaknesses in the commodity sectors. Now we have to remember when we think about the Canadian economy and our provincial economy, what are the common features here that prevail? Because there are a number of obvious common features which, if we kept in mind what they are, we would be able to respond to them. Now, the common features are fairly easy to pick out because they have characterized the Canadian economy since Canada was started, not just as an official nation, but for the centuries before that when Europeans first came here. It's a resource-based economy. That's the first thing. Whether it's energy or agriculture or mining or fishery or forestry, or it may be one day water, we are resource-rich. That's been a blessing, but it's also something of a difficulty because it means that what goes along with that is that we have not, in fact, transformed ourselves into a completely modern post-industrial economy. We're still resource-based and commodity prices fluctuate. They're vulnerable to the relative value of dollars. All of those things that we're seeing now, hard fact. We have a small domestic market. Big country, only 33 million people here. That's a small domestic market. We have one major trading partner, that's the United States. We are so extensively reliant on trade with the United States that it has been a major error of public policy in Canada to do that, not to diversify. We have significant corporate concentration, we have significant foreign ownership, and we have a mixed economy. Those are the basic facts about the Canadian economy. Any economist will tell you that, any sociologist will tell you that. They debate whether these things are good, bad, or indifferent, but those are the facts. They're the context within which we have to make our economic decisions. And I have to say that when I read that budget speech and when I listened to the programs that come out of different departments across the way there, I don't see that there is any understanding of the basic structures of what it is that makes our economy go. It's just not there. It's just not there. And what have been the answers? What have been the answers? What's happened? Let's agree that those are the factors. Let's agree that there's weakness. Let's agree that we're facing some problems, much more than the budget has acknowledged. So what are the two main things that we've heard? Well, from the governing Tories, we've heard, let's raise taxes a little bit on electricity. And from the third party, we've heard, let's take taxes a little bit off on gasoline fuel. Well, you know what? That is hardly, from either of those two parties, a comprehensive program that engages with what it is that we're going to need. And I have to say that there are alternatives available. There are a lot of alternatives that we have suggested over the years and that we are prepared to implement and that, in fact, we favor. Let me start by pointing out that the fundamental benefit to the economy that Nova Scotians could advance here through their government is to invest in education. Education is obviously the way forward. It's the way forward for individual families. It's the way forward for people in Metro. It's the way forward for everyone in this province. We are blessed. We are blessed by having the university infrastructure that we have, and we have unfortunately been plagued by having a government that has been generally hostile to the universities over the decades. That has been a very unfortunate thing. Post-secondary education, whether it's the community colleges or the universities, is in fact the best investment that the government can make through tax dollars. It's the best investment that individuals can make, and they are choosing to make it, but we have to make it easier for them. We have to move ahead in that. Education is a major priority of our party, and we see it as an economic tool. We see it as many things, but it is certainly an economic tool. Let me point out the next thing that has to happen, and it's appropriate to note on this day when the government came down with its first report on the sustainability legislation from a year ago, which is that economic decisions should be made keeping in mind sustainability principles. Every economic decision, every government decision should be made because we have to transform every sector of our economy onto a sustainable basis or they simply won't survive. And that's true of all those resource sectors that I mentioned before. The fishery has to be put on a sustainable basis and the forests have to be put on a sustainable basis and our energy production has to be put on a sustainable basis and mining has to be put on a sustainable basis. Any sector you like, it has to go onto a sustainable basis. And we have the knowledge to move ahead with that, and we have been warned time and time again about the fragility of a number of those sectors. Think about our fishery. Think about our fishery, which is such a big dollar value to our economy. That is under threat. You only have to look at the research of Professor Boris Worm at Dalhousie University, who has published and is internationally recognized as an expert on fish stocks and the fish health all around the world. He has pointed out abuse upon abuse in fisheries. We can't let that go on here. Now, unfortunately, fisheries is a federal jurisdiction matter, but we have a provincial department, and you hear boo. You don't hear boo out of that department that criticizes the federal government for its fisheries policies. Why is that? We are missing out here. We are missing out, and we are placing ourselves at peril. We know that there's fragility in the forestry. The latest observations about that have just come from GPI Atlantic, from the Ecology Action Centre. They have told the government time and time again about the fragility of our forestry practices. All of those things can be transformed to a sustainable basis, but they have not been. That's the second main thing. Let me point out another thing that we would do, and that in fact is a different kind of agenda, which is to be collaborative and to favor things, for example, like co-ops. We believe in community economic development. We believe in wide consultation. We believe that communities will figure out for themselves in many respects what it is that they ought to do, but that the government has to lead that kind of consultation process. Co-ops are an example of that. Co-ops in which people work together, whether they're consumer co-ops or producer co-ops. There's a big opportunity in Nova Scotia to do that. That is something that we favor, but the government has in fact neglected over the years. It's not something that they have done. What has been the major tool of government, the government's economic development plans, so-called? Nova Scotia Business Inc. Nova Scotia Business Inc. has been just a disaster. And here's why. It is because NSBI has this idea in its head that the main thing to do is to bring in businesses from somewhere else, compete with some other jurisdiction that is in the business of giving subsidies, and outbid them and bring them in here. That's a company that doesn't necessarily want to be in Nova Scotia, that comes here for the subsidies. That's not the best use of public dollars. What you want to do is invest smaller number of dollars in local Indigenous businesses that are either tied to our natural resources or are spin-offs from our universities in terms of research, and take advantage of that because we, as I said before, are blessed by our higher education infrastructure. So you have to be serious about these things. That has been the big mistake that Nova Scotia Business Inc. has made over the years, is to hunt the elephant. That's what it's called, is to go look for a big company from somewhere else. We've had a couple of successes with that. We've had Michelin, which has been a big success, and we've had RIM, which is, I certainly hope, going to be a big success, but those are rare. Those are rare, and the government knows very well that what it's brought here are call centers which are so highly mobile. They're only here for the subsidies, and after those subsidies are gone, they'll be gone because they don't even own the buildings that they're in. They rent them because they know they can move on to somewhere else. Well, let me tell you, there are alternatives, and that I think that our party is well positioned to move ahead with those alternatives. We have alternatives to how it is, and believe me, when I hear comments from the ministers opposite, including the Premier, that shows complete insensitivity or misunderstanding of how the economy works, including here in Metro, I am completely discouraged. Completely discouraged. And we get mixed signals from that government all the time. On the one hand, they're saying that they're all prepared to see Metro thrive, but they're not in touch with what it is that goes on here, which is with the real economic health of this province will be. So that is what I wanted to say in my 15 minutes, Mr. Speaker. Thank you for the opportunity to make some comments on the budget.
Thank you. The Chair now recognizes the honourable member for Preston.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today I want to talk about many things in my constituency and some of the areas that really need to be addressed. First thing I want to talk about, the government has touted their high-speed internet connection throughout the province, and unfortunately there's one little small area in my riding up near Eagle Lake subdivision that we've tried everything to get the high-speed internet hooked up. Unfortunately, there's a limited number of homes, and the power lines, the lines that are existing there, come in a long roundabout way to get to the homes that are there. And even with the new program the province has put in place, there's no plan to hook up this area. So when they say they're going to have the whole province connected, they're not even going to have the whole municipality connected when they're done, unless this changes quickly. And we've done everything. I've written to the minister, we've written to Alliant, we've written to Eastlink, and under the new program they come out with the fantastic announcements, but yet it isn't there to help these homes in this area. And some of these homes, people in the homes operate their businesses and work from there, so it's important to have high-speed internet. And it's an area that it's in Preston, and unfortunately the government hasn't paid very much attention to this. So that's one issue I wanted to put on the record here today. And hopefully the government will listen and change their mind on that and improve that situation. Also in my area I have the Mineville community. And the Mineville community over the past number of years has been a leader in the province, really. They have built infrastructure for recreation with tons and tons of volunteer hours, and the community has done an exceptionally good job of providing recreation where the province and the municipality simply didn't do it at the time. But since then, they've taken a small amount of money they've been able to raise in the community, combined that with volunteer work and contributions from the community and the municipality and the province and the federal government and all kinds of other places I didn't even know existed when it comes to supporting communities with funding. And they've built a couple of playgrounds, a multi-purpose court, and a little community facility that they can sell ice cream out of in the summer. And that's all been done with volunteers. And I want to congratulate the community for doing that, and hopefully it set a standard for other places in the province that can do that. We also in our area in Lake Loon, Cherrybrook, need a small community center. Now we've been working on this for many, many years, and indeed the community is growing very, very rapidly with the new developments going on in the area. And there's no place for seniors to go to have meetings, work on a quilt or whatever they may want to do. And just as importantly, and probably more importantly, there's no place for young people to go after they're done school. In the community, it's a very closely knit community, a community that takes a great deal of pride in their community, both aesthetically, and their homes are beautiful and their yards are beautiful. And they also take a great deal of pride in helping raise the children in the community. And it's unfortunate that they don't have access to a facility like this. And we're not talking a multi-million-dollar facility here. We're talking a modest facility that they can have a community suppers in, they can have recreation there for the children and for seniors, so that they can actually do some very positive things to help the community grow stronger and keep the wonderful atmosphere it has in the community. So that's an issue that really has to be addressed. And as we look at that and we go through that process, we see so many things that need to be done in the communities. But this is one of those things that the community center would really help that community and surrounding communities resolve many of the problems that they have. Then I want to also give credit to the Orenda Canoe Club in Lake Echo. The Orenda Canoe Club has been working there with the young people, several hundred young people over the years. They have some medalists at the Olympics. They've set Canadian records, they've set Commonwealth game records, and all from a small little clubhouse. And I remember one of the directors of the clubhouse saying to me, they were in Ontario, and they won every competition they were in. So this gentleman from Ontario said to the coach, he said, you must have a fantastic facility. He says, so, yes, we do. We have great people. So must be 2 or 3 months later, that particular coach came to Lake Echo to see this fantastic big building that they had with these fantastic coaches and everything. And he come down and he said, well, that's the size of our garage we keep a few of our boats in. And he said, yes, it is, but it's the people, like I told you, that make the difference. And they have made the difference. We've got wonderful programs there for young people that teach us some sportsmanship and the training. And actually, the club is very, very aggressive. They take the young athletes every winter to Florida and train in Florida for over a month, and which is paid for by the community, and the coaches go, and also they keep their classwork up. So there's arrangements made with the school so that not only young people that are in the program, fall behind with their homework or their schoolwork, and I give the community and the club a great deal of credit. We do need help there for staffing. If we had some staffing available there in the summertime for a couple of more coaches, they could look after a lot more children and indeed teach them in competitive paddling. And they are competitive. I say they've set world records in some events and indeed competed. The athletes from there have competed all over the world and shown a wonderful, wonderful benefit to the community as you see these young people grow and turn into coaches that some of them have, and some of them gone on to pursue other careers. But it's nice to see such a small little organization making such a fantastic impact on our province, really on our province. And I know some of the other canoe clubs in the HRM area really get irritated when the small little club comes and beats them at the events, and that happens on a regular basis. And it doesn't matter if it's the smallest children there or the senior members, they do very, very well. So it's you know, we need more recreation for the young people in our areas, and I think we'll cut down on the crime and the other problems we're having and the vandalism as we move forward. One of my previous honourable colleague talked about energy efficiency and improvement for homes. I think that's a very, very important thing. We've got seniors that are struggling to pay their oil bills now. They don't have money to insulate their homes and make their homes easier to heat so they can cut down their oil bill. So they're faced with either selling their homes and moving to a seniors complex, which is not a very delightful possibility for a senior that's worked their whole life to acquire a home, one that they've enjoyed with their husband or wife over the years and their family, and find it now that they're up in years and they want to stay in that home and live their life out in that home, that possibly they can't afford to do it. That is happening more and more and more. And it doesn't matter what community you're in or where you're from, you're going to see this more and more. Because years ago, the pension possibilities weren't there as they are today, so people have less income. I have many, many seniors in my area that are living on income of around $8,000, $9,000 a year. So if you pay $1,000 for a fuel bill, one fuel bill for 1 month, it doesn't take very much math to figure out what's going on, what's going to happen. So we really got to help seniors get their homes more energy efficient and work towards programs that can help them stay in their own homes. Because these people have contributed so much to our economy over the years, and now it's time that I think we help them stay in their homes and enjoy their homes, enjoy their community where they're well known and well respected. You know, we also have some serious traffic problems. We look at the traffic that's building as it comes in from the Eastern Shore and from Porters Lake and all the other areas. In the number 7 highway, a lot of people are shortcutting through the Montague area, causing a lot of problems in the area. There's a school in the area, and the traffic volumes are really high at rush hour, both coming and going at night. And the speed is also a problem, even though there's been radar traps set up there, and I'm sure there would be many more. So anyone that's listening, make sure that you don't speed on the Montague Road. But it's a serious problem. Really, we need a bypass. There was one started years ago, and I've been lobbying the government to try to get a bypass in, the 107 bypass, that would bypass all that, take all this traffic off of Main Street and off of Montague Road, and make it a lot safer area. There's a lot of issues there that have to be addressed, and it affects Montague and Westfall and that whole area. And in the mornings, sometimes the waits are 45 minutes to get through one set of lights. And that's got to change. It really has to change. There's so many problems there that need to change. One other thing that I've been pushing for and working with is the Black Cultural Centre to get adequate funding. Now, the Black Cultural Centre, I've spoken about it here many times, and about how important it is to Nova Scotia. It's the only facility like it in the country. It's there to preserve and protect and promote black history and culture in Nova Scotia and in the province, and indeed in the province, not just in my area. And the people that work there work absolute miracles with the resources they have to work with. But we really need to turn that into a provincial museum, give the centre the proper resources it needs so they can promote that very important history and culture, which has really helped build and promote our province and grow our province to the fantastic place it is today to live and to work. We need to do so many of these things. And as you look at the communities and what's happening in the communities, it's so important that we protect our young people and look after our seniors. The rest of us in the middle, somehow or other, always can make it, and we can do things. But there also has to be help for the working group of people to help insulate your homes and become more energy efficient, which will work right towards what the Department of Environment, the Minister of Environment is trying to do, but they haven't put any positive programs in place. I have one of the last things I want to talk about is O'Connell Drive in Porters Lake. Now, thanks to the province, O'Connell Drive was paved from number 7 highway to the school in Porters Lake. And the school created all the traffic, pretty well all the traffic on that road that was damaging the road in that section of road. And there was no argument from anybody in that area that indeed that needed to be done. Unfortunately, the local councillor took upon himself to decide to get the upper part of the road paved unbeknownst to anybody. It wasn't there on the list to be done. It was never petitioned. Nobody had asked the road to be paved. It was just a non-issue. And there had been about 64, 65 streets within HRM that have been waiting years to get the roads paved under the aid to the municipality. But somehow or other, he convinced the government to put on a list, get the road paved, then afterwards started the consultation, which was no consultation. It was just, this has happened, now you've got to pay. And not only that, but what happened with that whole process was that the people on the lower part of the street that absolutely got no benefit from the upper part of the street have now been hit with an area rate. This is precedent setting in the province, and I don't believe it's legal. And all the side streets got an area rate as well to pay for this road. And if anyone thinks that this is not an issue for their street and the people in O'Connell Drive should pay, that's fine. But you got to remember, if your street is paved, someday down the road, if another street is paved 4 or 5 kilometers away, you might get an area rate to help pay for that one too. On the area of the side streets that aren't even paved, so they're going to pay the area rate now, and when the road is paved, they're going to have to pay again. So they're going to be paying twice for the same service, a service they don't even have yet. So this has been a total injustice to the people of that community, and I was hope that the government would see that review this situation and at least eliminate the area rate that the residents in the area have been really stricken with without the proper consultation or even a precedent setting that this was ever done before, and indeed help the people. And some of the people in that area are retired, they're seniors, and not expecting a bill of $1,600. Never mind the residents that are higher up the street that are hit with a bill for $2,000 each. And the worst about the area rate is it's over a period of time. They can't even pay it in advance. And if they're at the whim of the councillor, if they want to increase the area rate for some other reason, they'll jack it up again. So this kind of activity's got to stop. We've got to put laws in this legislature that prevent this ever happening again to anyone in this province. And I don't see any movement on the government to go in that direction. And all I can do is encourage them to do it. And perhaps someday, that when we're back in power again, we're going to have this thing changed, so this won't happen. Anyway, thank you very much for the time today, and look forward to further debate.
Thank you. The motion is carried.
order, please. Good afternoon. The Committee on Supply will now be called to order. Chair will now recognize the acting Deputy Government House Leader, the Honourable Member for Eastern Shore. The Honourable.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. At this time, I would like to call the estimates of the Department of Transportation and Infrastructure Renewal.
Thank you, and we'll recognize the Honourable Member for Clare.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I want to continue where I left off. I want to begin this afternoon with the snow and ice control budget. Mr. Chair, this past winter in Nova Scotia was certainly, I would say, highly demanding on the department snow and ice control budget. I understand our local office at home in Clare, and I'm sure we were not the only one throughout our province, that overspend their winter budget for snow and ice control this past season. Especially from all the media reports, Clare was certainly not the only one that overspent their budget. My question to the Minister is, what happens in this type of situation? Does the department cut their summer maintenance budget to our local office and to other offices across the province? Does the department cut their summer maintenance budget in order to make up the difference on their overspending on snow and ice control? Or does the department pick up the overall spending cost?
The Honourable the Minister of Transportation and Infrastructure Renewal.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the member opposite. Just before I answer the question, yesterday there was a request for information around the Build Canada Fund, some information we're looking for there, and also the base funding agreement. So I'll table those. I'll table those for the members' information in case you want to copy it or we get a chance here. The member's absolutely right. We had an extraordinary year this year in regards to the weather we've had, the amount of salt used, overtime in the department, right across the whole province. What would happen if a region, for example, as the honourable member asked about his, if it was overspent in regards to its winter budget, then we would it would either be made up within the department, or there'd be a request for an extra appropriation of funds to cover that for the department. I do want to say that although we had a particularly severe winter this year and we were over budgeted, the winter before we actually had a very good winter and we were under budget. So over the years, we never know if one year or the next what type of weather we'll have and what type of winter we'll have. But the answer to all members' question, the local staff in that region wouldn't necessarily suffer as a result of that. It will be dealt with by the department with the funds within the department as a result of moving money around within their existing budget.
The Honourable Member for Clare.
Mr. Chair, I'm pleased with the information. I guess the obvious question, as the Minister indicated, the ice and snow and ice control budget this year for the department overall certainly was overspent. I'm just curious, as the Minister indicated, the department basically ends up picking up that extra cost. I guess what I'm trying to find out for this past winter, this past year, within the 2007 and 08 budget, was the department able to find the funding within their budget, or they have to provide, I guess, a special request to government in order to make up the difference? So maybe the Minister could indicate whether or not the department was able to find that overspending, to pick up that overspending within his budget, or they had to seek some additional funding from government.
The Honourable the Minister of Transportation and Infrastructure Renewal.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And we were actually this year, to answer the member's question, we were actually $32 million overspent We, I think fair to say, and I'm sure the honourable member would agree, that in a normal year, if you were over by a lot lesser amount of you know, $2 or $3 or $4 million, you probably could find it within an existing budget within the department somehow and try to move those funds around. But in this particular case, we would have had to ask for an extra appropriation of funds, which we did. But I just want to give an example of this past year. In the year before, a normal year, I guess we would use around 240 ton of salt, and 240,000 ton of salt, and this year we actually used 360. So you can quickly see how the budget would be well overspent as a result of the very severe winter we had. And as I'm reminded now, it's actually this year was a record high for us in this province. So,
The honourable member for Clare.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to go quickly to the supplementary detail on page 23.5, the budget for snow and ice control. My question to the minister is, does the department have a formula they use to determine how much funding is given to our different local offices for snow plowing, for salting, for sanding? So I guess what I'm trying to find out, is there a general formula that's used by the department to provide funding all around the province?
The Honourable the Minister of Transportation and Infrastructure Renewal.
thank you, Mr. Chair. I believe the honourable member was talking about the winter budget only, or talking about budget in general, just winter budget. What we would do is we would look at the last 5 years in regards to winter budgets throughout the province. We would take off the highest and the lowest and take an average from those three, and that would determine then what each area would get. In regards to a budget for areas throughout the province, the general budget, what's taken into consideration, what determines the amount that each area will get would depend on, obviously, the kilometres of roads in each area under their jurisdiction, the types of roads, whether they're 100 series right on through the gravel roads, and of course the amount of traffic that would be on those types of roads throughout the area. So all those factors will be taken into consideration when each area is when it's determined what each area of the province would receive its allocation of funds.
The honourable member for Clare.
I want to thank the minister for his answer, his information. Mr. Chair, I want to move to a different topic. I want to talk a little bit about bridges, Mr. Chair. The department, the minister indicated in his opening comments, the department maintains around 4,100 bridges across our province. We know, Mr. Chair, some of our bridges are over 100 years old. Some of these bridges certainly don't meet current weight and traffic volume standards. Some of them need extensive repairs. Some of them have been destroyed or damaged by floods in recent years. And Chair, we've seen bridges collapsing around the province. So allow me to talk about one of these bridges that did collapse. Mr. Chair, on August 13, 2003, the Matagan River Bridge in Clare did collapse in the river. Luckily, nobody was seriously injured. This bridge is located on Trunk 1, so there's definitely a high volume of traffic on that road. Again, Mr. Chair, it was a miracle that nobody was seriously hurt that day. Again, looking back at this bridge collapsing in the river, you have to ask yourself, if this could have been prevented. I understand the department has staff, has bridge engineers inspecting bridges on a regular basis. I'm sure depending on their structure ratings, good or bad or fair or poor, some bridges probably will be inspected more than others. I guess my first question to the minister is how often are bridges in Nova Scotia inspected? Are these inspections reports available to the general public? So I'll begin with that one.
The Honourable the Minister of Transportation and Infrastructure Renewal.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank the member opposite for the question. In regards to the specific bridge he's talking about, you're right. There's been a panel bridge in place there since the bridge was destroyed, as you mentioned. The plan within the department right now is to the plan within the Department of Transportation right now is to replace that bridge in 2009 with a new bridge. There's an annual inspection done of bridges each year as well. A more thorough inspection will be done every 3 to 4 years. And if there were requests from the local communities, or there was a request coming to the department, we would certainly provide that information to the honourable member or to his constituents if they were asked for it.
The Honourable Member for Clare.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, certainly after the bridge collapsed in Matagan River, many people did ask about the bridge inspection. So I was just curious from the department's bridge inspection reports that are carried out, I'm sure every day somewhere in this province. Does the general public have access to those inspections? Can they go online? Can they find out if these bridge inspections are available to the general public, or are these bridge inspections only kept inside the department? I'm just trying to find out. Are these inspection reports, are they available to the public, or aren't they?
The Honourable the Minister of Transportation and Infrastructure Renewal.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the member opposite for the question. Yes, we would answer in a positive manner in regards to a specific request from in regards to those inspections. It would be available if the honourable member wanted it. Would certainly be made available to him. And again, I just want to point out that inspections have been done on the bridge that the honourable member is talking about. It's been deemed to be safe, and our plan is to replace that bridge in 2009.
The Honourable Member for Clare.
Thank you. Again, Mr. Chair, I'm sure the general public would certainly encourage the government or the department staff to keep doing regular bridge inspections to assure the general public that these bridges are safe. Again, in Clare, especially in the last couple of years, and I've been requesting on a regular basis, we're making inquiries, especially to do a follow-up from concerned citizens about the safety on two bridges in our community. And the two bridges in question is the one in Salmon River Bridge, and the other one is the St. Benoni Bridge. And the request that I've been getting has always been, how safe are these two bridges? So my question to the minister, would it be possible to request the most recent bridge assessment reports from these two bridges? And they're the Salmon River Bridge and the St. Benoni Bridge.
The Honourable the Minister of Transportation and Infrastructure Renewal.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the member opposite for the question. And yes, upon the honourable member's request, we will endeavour to get those reports and make them available to the member as quickly as possible.
The Honourable Member for Clare.
Thank you. I want to go back to the supplementary detail on page 23.5, Highway and Bridges. The department is planning to spend $12.8 million on bridge maintenance this year. My question to the minister, would it be possible to get a list of these bridges that will receive some repairs in 2008 and 2009?
The Honourable the Minister of Transportation and Infrastructure Renewal.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The department would have obviously a list of bridges throughout the province that we would we'd want to certain type of work on. There may be a bridge today that we determine we're going to do work on within a week, and maybe another bridge that through an inspection is determined that there may be a larger need on a different bridge. So we really wouldn't have that list available at this point. It's more of it'd be a moving list that we would, and as inspections are done, then bridges would be put on, and whatever the priority would be, depending on the type of works needed, then we would allocate the funds for that bridge.
The honourable member for Clare.
Thank you. So I guess moving from bridge maintenance, I'm looking at new capital funding to construct new bridges. How much is the department planning to spend on new bridge construction this year? And again, would it be possible to get a list of those new capital projects for 08-09?
The Honourable, the Minister of Transportation and Infrastructure Renewal.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To the member opposite, again, we would have all those bridges in the province on a list that we would hope that require some sort of work. Then, when it comes to the capital, we'd have a list of bridges that we'd hope that we'd be able to at least consider applying this capital money towards. I would be able to tell you at this point which ones we have tenders out for. We're in some of the design stages as well for some of the other bridges, so we really don't have that list yet as to what we would be doing the work on. Some of those are in the design stages now, so it depends on what cost they come in at, how far we can use the obviously $36 million which will be allocated this year for capital. I do want to say as well, just to remember that we've increased, we've increased this year money for bridges.
The honourable member for Clare.
Thank you. So I guess just to be clear, the department has a list for new bridges that they're looking at constructing in this given year, and they have a list of bridges where they're going to be carrying out some maintenance, some general repairs on those bridges. So is that, am I correct to assume that? There's two, the department is working off two different lists. One which would include all new constructions, and the other one that would be worked, carried out for repairs or general maintenance on these bridges. Thank you.
The Honourable the Minister of Transportation and Infrastructure Renewal.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess one of the examples I'll use was the Sawmill Creek Bridge, which we intended on doing last year, for example, and there were some issues that come up during that, whether they were foundation issues or issues that actually prevented that bridge from being done last year. So projects like that get moved to the following year that we weren't able to do last year, so we're doing those this year. So again, we don't actually have the list, a particular list. I can say these are the bridges this year we're going to do. We've got X number of dollars in our budget that we have allocated for capital. The department will ascertain over the next while which bridges we feel we can do with the money we have, and then proceed from there.
The honourable member for Clare.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, I would like to ask the Minister, once the department has reviewed the request for this given year, they have reviewed the different projects that have been submitted, they have received all the engineering work. Would it be possible for the department, for the Minister, at a later date, to provide me with a copy of the list of the bridges that will be receiving some work in this current year?
The Honourable the Minister of Transportation and Infrastructure Renewal.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, the honourable member is asking, if you're asking, we can provide that list to you later on this year. Yes.
The honourable member for Clare.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to move to another area. I want to talk about the K roads. some government roads, especially located in rural Nova Scotia, have been delisted from receiving regular maintenance work from the department. These K-class roads receive limited work, if any at all, that's carried out by the department. And I'm sure I'm not the only one that is receiving requests from individuals that are living on some of these K-class roads, asking the department to carry out some work on these delisted roads. So my first question to the Minister is, how do roads get delisted and classified as K roads?
The Honourable the Minister of Transportation and Infrastructure Renewal.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've only been in the department about 6 months now, so certainly it predates me and it predates my colleague in regards to when this would have happened. Actually, the last, that we understand, the last road that would have been delisted in Nova Scotia would have been 1984. Or earlier. I can tell you that there have been none delisted since then. So what process was used prior to that, I don't know. I know there are roads, I have my own constituency that are the type of roads the honourable member talks about, and we get a lot of requests as an MLA to try to have the department provide some sort of service. And I'm sure the honourable member would agree that obviously I would believe that back then those roads were delisted, obviously because they weren't used, there were no longer any homes on them, they were no longer there'd been really no need, I guess, at that point for service to those roads, and I'm only assuming this because, again, but presently there would have to be a request to myself as minister to delist a road, and I haven't had any since I've been here, and my understanding is there haven't been any for years. So I don't know what the process was prior, but I can tell you that the process now would have to come through us, and we haven't received any of the time I've been there. But again, we're talking about roads, I believe, that would no longer be inhabited, be no longer homes on them, no longer used for any type of work. And I suppose over the years, the department no longer provided service because it wasn't needed.
The Honourable Member for Clare.
Mr. Chair, I want to thank the Minister for that information, because since I've been involved in politics, I keep getting calls making reference to K-class roads, but I've never asked or found out, where did they come from, how did roads get delisted and added on to this list. I know for a fact, Minister, there are a few K-class roads in Clare where there are people living on these roads. I guess my next question to the Minister is, does the department spend any funding on carrying out work on K-class roads?
The Honourable the Minister of Transportation and Infrastructure Renewal.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The area manager would have the ability, discretion within his or her own budget to spend up to $1,000 on a K-class road. But again, I just want to reiterate that I think that K-class roads, and I'm not sure the ones the minister's talking, the member's talking about, but certainly K-class roads where there's no longer any homes, it's not used for any type of service, it would make sense for the department to spend scarce budget dollars maintaining roads that really are not used by anyone. But obviously the member mentioned earlier that some of these roads that he's talking about do have homes on them. But the answer is the area manager would have some discretion within their own budget. But for K-class roads, it would only be up to $1,000.
The Honourable Member for Clare.
Thank you. I guess the reason I was asking that question, I have one individual that has a home in St. Alphonse. It's on the Bear Cove Road. It's a K-class road, and every winter, especially when the snow starts coming down, they usually call, is it possible for the department staff to come and plow us out? I know a few years ago they were they were covered with snow. And I know that the department staff did actually go in and try to help them to move the snow around. So I'm glad to hear that maybe through the area supervisor, there might be some funding to help on these special types of requests. Again, continuing on roads, I want to talk a little bit about gravel roads. Again, I'm sure as a rural MLA and all rural MLAs in this House, Mr. Chair, certainly an area that you receive a lot of calls from people living on gravel roads. And this is basically throughout the year. There's no particular times, I guess. Of course, especially in the spring when the roads are thawing out and getting very muddy, certainly the volume of calls increases. I guess I'm looking for information on the department's policy on gravel road. This question has been raised many times. Does the department have a moratorium on not paving gravel roads, or does the department pave? Do they pave any gravel roads, and if so, which ones, and if not, why not? So I guess I'll start off by asking the minister if he could comment on that.
The Honourable the Minister of Transportation and Infrastructure Renewal.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I just want to, just for clarification, I did want to mention to the honourable member that I guess the definition of a K-class road is an listed unmaintained road where in special circumstances the area manager or supervisor could spend up to $1,000 a year on it. So maybe I didn't make that quite clear, but that's kind of the definition of a K-class road. When it comes to gravel roads, look, you know, we get a tremendous amount of calls and letters from members here in the House about gravel roads, and obviously from both sides and a lot of constituents across the province. When we, you know, the opportunity for us to cost share in gravel road pavement is obviously with the municipalities through the subdivision type roads. So there's an opportunity for the province to take part in that. The budget was increased to $2 million, which allows the municipalities obviously to move on that initiative. I guess you could say there is an unwritten policy within the department that we're trying to, as opposed to going out and paving new gravel roads now, we're trying to maintain the paved roads we have in the province. You know, with the increase in fuel that we see, and with the increase in trucking cost, the increase in that we see in the tenders, it's a real challenge to maintain, to try to catch up and maintain the roads that we presently have. And as I mentioned the other night during estimates to the honourable member from Queens, that you know, and if we did have the ability to pave more roads now, that means that we would require additional operational money for maintenance over the next number of years as well. So more paving would be great today, but it would also mean additional dollars required to maintain those roads in the coming years. I do want to say as well that although I know a lot of people will build homes on gravel roads, and then they become whether it's the dust or whatever that you know they seek to have those roads paved. A lot of times, you know, I know in my own area, the OSs and the area manager will encourage people to continue to support gravel roads in their particular area because they're able to maintain them locally as opposed to waiting for funding provincially for capital money. So there is an opportunity to. I think there are a lot of good gravel roads in Nova Scotia that are maintained well by the department staff, and I know there are cases that have been brought before this House that maybe there's some that aren't so good, and I would encourage those members to work with their local OSs and area managers, as I've done over the last number of 10 years, to encourage them to through their own maintenance money to deal with that issue. But we're doing everything we can to maintain the present paving projects that we have in the province. The capital money goes to those roads, so it's very difficult to look at paving more roads now when we're doing everything we can to maintain the present number of paved roads that we have today.
The honourable member for Clare.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So again, just to be clear, I understood that the department do paved gravel roads. Basically, these are sometimes subdivision roads that are submitted to the department for paving. But outside of any municipal arrangements, the department has a moratorium on paving gravel roads. Am I correct to assume that? I'm just looking for clarification. Government doesn't pave any gravel roads at this time?
The Honourable the Minister of Transportation and Infrastructure Renewal.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank the honourable member for the question, I think. Basically, I would say the honourable member is right that, and I'm not going to go, I won't restate everything I just said a moment ago. But, and obviously there will be times where there will be extenuating circumstances or a specific situation that needs to be addressed. I think the honourable member knows exactly what I'm going to say, and that's the issue around O'Connell Drive, where the department made a decision for various reasons with the school on that road that was under provincial jurisdiction as a result of school buses trying to get into that school. All the issues brought before the department. The department made a decision that it would pave that gravel road, and but I would suggest that only in very extenuating circumstances would the department, in the present day at least, with the budgets we have, be able to consider paving gravel roads.
The honourable member for Clare.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, on gravel roads, I'm just curious if the department has a policy on grading gravel roads. And the reason I'm asking this question to the minister, I would say every spring, late spring and summer, fall, I keep getting calls, and I'm sure I'm not the only one getting calls from residents who are living on gravel roads, calling to request that their road needs to be graded. So, these residents, I guess, they just get frustrated because every year they have to keep calling the local office, to have them to come out and grade their road. Sometimes their roads are usually graded late spring, and sometimes sometime in the middle of the summer, and then sometime in the fall before the winter comes in. So I guess I'm trying to find out from the minister, does the department have a policy on grading roads?
The Honourable the Minister of Transportation and Infrastructure Renewal.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the member opposite. I would receive the same calls again over the last 10 years. I know the honourable member receives as well, and those same concerns and same type of questions. I can tell the honourable member that normally in the spring on gravel roads, the department, depending on the weather, obviously would have to wait till the road was dry enough so that it actually could be graded. I think we'd all agree that there wouldn't be much point in grading a road that's going to be grading mostly mud and turning up a lot of debris in the road that would otherwise wouldn't happen if the road was dry. So normally they'd wait for the road to dry, give it a grading. Not long after that would be chloride spread on that road. And of course, by going in and grading again right after that, you'd only take the chloride off. So hopefully, other than some patching throughout the summer, if need be, gravel patching, then it probably wouldn't be touched again until probably early fall and given another grading. So I think that's probably the standard way it's done. I know that, again, those calls I've received myself as an MLA over the years, I found it very beneficial to me to meet with the area manager and the OS, and I'm sure the honourable member has as well, just to even to go over those roads together in a vehicle to show them what they're like and look at the concern that people have. I know it's as much in their best interest as it ours as it is the citizens to have these roads in as good a repair as possible. And my experience has been that when I work with the OS and the area manager that we probably can achieve the best results for the residents. But again, it would depend on the weather for the year. I mean, I've had calls from people say, why don't they get down and grade this road? It's because it's rained probably for 2 weeks before that, and it would just be nothing but mud. And it's pretty difficult for staff to do it when that. But if the conditions are right, I know they do the best they can. They will do the grading, chloriding, then the grading in the fall before winter.
Honourable member for Clare.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I certainly agree with the minister. His staff can only go so far, but expecting to grade a gravel road, especially after it rained for several days. You can't allow a grader to go in there and start grading mud. That's practically impossible. And sometimes, as MLAs, we do get calls, expectations from the general public, and especially from individuals living on some gravel roads. Sometimes, you have to certainly acknowledge, that some of these requests, unfortunately, you have to wait until the road dries up some before you send the grader out. Pardon me. Mr. Chair, again, I want to bring this to the attention of the Minister, and I'm sure I'm just thinking of my colleague from Digby Annapolis. I want to talk about the alders and the shrubs and the tall grass along our roads. Again, this is often I get calls from people asking when the department will be cutting the alders or the shrubs or the tall grass near the side of the roads. It certainly is a safety issue, Mr. Chair. When you're trying to pull out of a driveway, unfortunately you can't see. We know what danger that could bring upon. Also, when you're driving along a road and all of a sudden an animal, runs across the road in front of your vehicle, we know that certainly could present some problems as well. Usually at home, Mr. Chair, throughout the summer, Mr. Minister, I see your staff trimming the side of the roads, and usually this is only done once throughout the entire summer or early fall. So my question to the Minister, is it the department's policy only to mow or trim the side of the road only once a year by your department, or if there's no policy? I'm just curious if there is a policy and what it is, if there is one.
The Honourable Minister of Transportation and Infrastructure Renewal.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the member opposite for the question. The member would know that there are two ways that brush cutting and ditching, the brush cutting, particularly in the bush cutting he's talking about, gets done in this province. One is through our own staff and equipment. In fact, I mentioned in the list in my opening comments yesterday that purchasing 2 more pieces of this type of equipment that's required in this province. So we would have our own staff with their own equipment that would go out and do a lot of that work. We also, through the RIM money, the $20 million RIM funds that are available, would hire private contractors as well in parts of the province to do the type of work the honourable member is bringing forward. So, but generally speaking, yes, the policy would be, or I guess our policy would be that we would do that type of work once a year. But I would want to say as well that if there are specific areas that the honourable member's thinking about, or if there were specific situations throughout the summer that are either dangerous or the member feels they're a hazard, or the citizens do, I'd encourage them to contact the local depot, the area manager, the supervisor, bring it to their attention, because I'm sure that if that situation has arisen, that they would do all they can to ensure our roads are safe. So, basically we would do it once a year unless otherwise required.
The Honourable Member for Clare.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I appreciate the information. I know my time is winding down for this
2 minutes.
this part. I guess I just want to touch on the RIM funding. How much RIM funding is in the department's budget this year?
The Honourable Minister of Transportation and Infrastructure Renewal.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to say that, and I'm sure the honourable member would agree, of all the initiatives, I think within the transportation budget, I think that the piece that I see that's the most well received, at least in rural Nova Scotia, is this RIM money when it comes to ditching and graveling, some guardrail work, the work the honourable member is talking about. I think that's well received in rural Nova Scotia. In fact, I hear in spreader patching, I hear a lot of good comments from citizens about the great work that's done with this with the RIM money. I will say that the program was $9 million, but this year the budget will be $20 million for that, and I think that we'll probably see a lot of good results from the expenditure of $20 million right across the province, and I think citizens will agree that it's money well spent. Thank you.
The honourable member for Clare.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm pleased to hear that the RIM funding has gone up. I guess with this additional funding, I'm just curious, will the field offices across the province receive the same level of RIM funding this year as last year, or will they be expecting an increase in their RIM funding budget?
The Honourable the Minister of Transportation and Infrastructure Renewal.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As I said, the original budget when the RIM started was 9 million. It's up to 20 now. It was 20 million last year. So those areas would receive the same money this year as they did last year. Yes.
Order, please. The time for the honourable member has expired. We'll now recognize from the NDP caucus the honourable member for Queens.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And nice to be back, maybe. And I just want to say thank you again. And thank you to your staff. I mean, you know, you have sat here yesterday through 4 hours, was it? No, almost 4 hours, 40, yeah. And I didn't see you take a break at all, so I admire you for just sitting there and advising the minister as well. I know my colleague here talked, and yes, you too, Mr. Chair. The chair revolves a little bit, so you never know who's, well, if you're not paying attention. I know my colleague talked a lot about gravel roads, so I would like to continue on in that vein just for a little bit. I have a gravel road in my riding. It's the Llewellyn Road, and I've been in the Llewellyn Road. That's Llewellyn, Llewellyn. It is off of the 103, and the Llewellyn Road actually is also home to a nearby quarry in Middlewood. And I spoke with department staff about this particular road over the last 2 years, and many residents have contacted me about this particular road. And while some of the general work to gravel roads and that particular gravel road is getting done, what I'm hearing is because of the quarry and the amount of traffic from the trucks bringing, you know, their materials out of the quarry, they use the Llewellyn Road as a shortcut. It makes sense for them to do that economically to get where they're going in different parts of the riding. However, what's happening, as you can imagine, is there's a lot of wear and tear on the Llewellyn Road. And there has been suggestions to me that perhaps rather than the basic grading and surfacing gravel that happens sometimes twice yearly, that there should be a strengthening of that road base because of the wear and tear. I'm wondering if you can tell me how strengthening of a road is determined over and above the regular maintenance that happens on gravel roads, and whether this particular road, because of the volume, the heavy volume of the truck traffic there, how that would be determined.
The Honourable Minister of Transportation and Infrastructure Renewal.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'd like to thank the honourable member for the question. I wanted to say that I wasn't sure. I didn't know where the Llewellyn Road was, and I don't think my colleague to the left did, but I can tell you that my Director of Finance knew exactly where it was. So I was pretty impressed there, right? That's great. Normally what would happen is when an area manager and the OSs are given their allotment for the year under the RIM, then if it's a gravel road, then they would be able to take funding out of that RIM money to actually, you know, do the type of work the honourable member is talking about. And I'm sure the honourable member would agree that there's various levels of maintenance required on different types of roads, depending on the traffic, depending on the condition of the road, depending on what type of activity may be on it, whether it's a road that's used for woods operations, and obviously the weather would play a big factor in that as well. But the area manager, in conjunction with the OS, who receive the RIM money budget for the year, which they would submit a list to us, and then their monies are allocated to the areas, would have the ability to, would have the discretion, I guess, to use that money as they see the need be within their own area. So because it's a gravel road, it will be done locally, I guess is the answer. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Queens.
Thank you. The minister may be aware that back in 2003, the riding boundaries were changed. The riding of Lunenburg West and the riding of Queens were reconfigured. And a result of that, or one of the results of that reconfiguration with the boundaries, has been a challenge for me as a member, because I'm talking with two area supervisors, and it appears, I mean, to be perfectly honest, I have had wonderful communication with DOT staff on both in Queens County, on the Queens side, and also on the Lunenburg side, absolutely without a doubt. But it does appear that the mandates of the area supervisors are slightly different. And so it's a challenge for me as a member to explain to residents who live in the Queens County end of the riding, to explaining similar things to the member or the residents in the Lunenburg West end of my riding. And an example would be bush cutting, for example. I hear many residents that call me from the Lunenburg West end of the riding, and they will say, look, you know, how come we're not getting the same type of service when it comes to bush cutting along our highways as you're getting in Queens County? Now, I believe that the area supervisor in Queens has made a concerted effort to really move forward with bush cutting all along the 103 and also along the Route 8, which is incredible. I mean, it's both sides of the 103 as you leave the Lunenburg County line into Queens looks completely different than on the Lunenburg County side. And, you know, there's good visibility. There is, you know, along the number 8 highway, which is seeing some much needed paving upgrades. There's also a lot of bush cutting there as well. So I guess I've never really asked the question of both area supervisors, you know, what is happening on our end or in the Queens County end as opposed to what's happening on the Lunenburg County end. So I'm wondering if you can tell me how, you know, how that kind of meshes itself out, if you will, between both two departments in two different, or
The Honourable Minister of Transportation and Infrastructure Renewal.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the member opposite. And I just want to say again, I want to thank the member opposite and the and also the member for Clare, who passed along some good comments about staff, because I agree totally that I've always said that the public are really not well aware of the dedicated professional staff that we have that work in the departments that they don't get to see very often. I know out in the ridings they do, because they see the OS all the time, or they call them, but there are a lot of dedicated staff in the department, and all the departments here, in that I guess the sad part is that the public don't get an opportunity to see them, don't know them by name, and don't understand the great work they do. But I appreciate your comments, and I know they do as well. I would just say, just back to the honourable member's question, the honourable member's area, although under the jurisdiction of different operational supervisors, would come under the direction of one area manager. And really, the policy should be the same. The level of service should be the same throughout the honourable member's area, irregardless of where the boundaries are between one OS and the other. Now, one OS may have a different priority in regards to, you know, one OS may prefer to see brush cutting, another OS may prefer to see ditching done, someone else may prefer to see shouldering or gravel patching. But, you know, I really encourage the honourable member to work with the area manager if you have concerns like that, you know, to discuss them with the area manager, and to maybe even to meet with all the supervisors together. I've done that myself as well. Sit down with the area manager and the OSs. If they're having a meeting, maybe, you know, ask them if you can come as well, and talk about those issues. You may find that there may be some reason why that's happening, but I think you'd find that basically the level of service should be the same across your constituency, no matter where the boundaries are between OS's jurisdictions. And I think probably the proper way to work that through is if you can't do it with the OSs, then probably with the area manager, who I'm sure would want to work with you to resolve it.
The Honourable Member for Queens.
And thank you for that. And perhaps it is that I haven't asked that particular question with the area manager. And I mean, the level of service, I think, is comparable in both, you know, comparable in the sense that I know the priority areas are being looked after. And, you know, you made mention that perhaps the OAS is looking at bush cutting as a priority for that particular section, whereas, you know, perhaps in the other section, the priority could be ditching. So, yeah, I can see where those decisions are being made more on the local level. But I will follow through and discuss that more thoroughly on the local level. So thank you for that. It was much appreciated when you became Minister of Transportation and Infrastructure Renewal to get an invite to sit down and discuss with you some of our local priorities or what I hear coming into my office as residents' requests or residents' thoughts around their priorities and all of our priorities. And I have to say, the previous minister also extended that invite. And it's a good way to communicate and start conveying. Can you tell me how, you know, when we as members come to the department, come to the minister and give you our list of priorities, and a lot of times we have either, you know, chatted with DOT staff locally, or we've traveled the roads ourselves to kind of, you know, make sure that when we are submitting a list to the minister, to the department, that it is a comprehensive list and that, you know, we're just not asking to have money poured into a road that perhaps goes to the end of nowhere, no one's living on it, for example. So can you tell me, when you receive our priority lists, how a decision is made based on the information you're getting from DOT, because they would have a separate priority list coming into the department saying, look, this is the work we need to continue with, this is the work we'd like to start, here is our list, here's your members list, and then here is perhaps another list that has come to your attention from somewhere else. So could you tell me how those decisions are made?
The Honourable Minister of Transportation and Infrastructure Renewal.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the member opposite. Obviously, in each area, an OS would, you know, through their own endeavor to their supervisor, the area manager, you know, submit to them what they believe to be priorities in their areas. That would be passed along through the region and obviously into Halifax, and that would come from all across the province. The department would do assessments of those roads. There would be an assessment done on the road, for example, you know, the traffic on the road, the condition of the road, the type of work that we required to bring that road up to standard. So that would be the list the department would have, and it would have those roads would be listed in areas of priority based on that and based on the number, you know, the traffic and so on. And when the honourable member, for example, would submit her list, the department then would run the numbers on your top priorities. And a lot of times, what we'd find is a lot of times the top priorities for the department would be the same as the top priorities for the honourable member. So a lot of times there's really no need to do any more work. But if there was if the honourable member had a top priority that was absolutely the priority in the area, and it wasn't one necessarily the department had, the department would run the numbers on that as well to see kind of where it fits in, see if it's anywhere near what the department determines determines would be the priority, and kind of take from there. And of course, then it depends on the amount of budgeting you would have for each area and how. And we're back again to what I talked about earlier about cost. I want to make sure that everybody in the House understands that particularly when it comes to paving, because that's what everybody's interested really is paving. We've talked about paving the province. You know, $250,000 per kilometre, $250,000 to $300,000. But keeping in mind that when we talk about petroleum increasing in this province, that means that that liquid asphalt goes up. I believe went from $450 to $685. So that gives you an idea of the additional cost there we're going to face for paving this season. When paving is up, the contractors who have contracted prior and have been awarded tenders, there's an adjustment in there for their extra cost. The truckers who, through the association, who provide work for us, also have a fuel adjustment clause, which we have a base, which is presently is a dollar a liter, and you know what the price of gas is now. So because of the extra cost for them now, we have to adjust up our prices to them as well. So actually, and with the increase we've seen with that dollar, actually now represented a 22% increase that we're facing just for the trucking costs. So there's all kinds of factors that come into play when we look at a priority list for the all members area, for example, her priority list, how we marry them up. Then we decide the kind of dollars we have for an area, and then of course taking into consideration those things I just talked about. Those have to be all factored in as well. So you can see there's all kinds of challenges when it comes to determining what work we can do, where we can do it, and when we can do it. And I can tell you that, you know, and again, I mentioned the other night as well, we're presently looking at the processes we have in place today for repaving in Nova Scotia, and that's being reviewed now. It's being reviewed with the Road Builders Association. And one last thing that helps determine the roads in the all members area, for example, would be the number of kilometers of paved roads in that particular riding. So those are all factored in at the end of the day to help us determine, you know, which roads we would do in the all members riding, for example.
Honourable Member for Queens.
Thank you. I'm wondering, too, if there are any other considerations, economical considerations or financial considerations around paving besides the standard formulas that are used in terms of condition, age of roads, the base, the cost of materials, the population of the particular community, what other factors? The standard formulas that would be used, traffic volume, what type of traffic, how many residents, all of those. I wonder if there are other factors that the department has looked at in the past or perhaps could look at in the future when determining whether a road in a community, a secondary road, should be paved. And I guess what I'm talking about is the economic viability of a community. Because in order for a lot of our rural communities to grow, and certainly we have a number of challenges in our rural communities with migration of youth, aging population, we're trying to attract people back into our communities. So infrastructure in and around our communities is a huge attraction or not an attraction to some people when they're deciding where they may locate or choosing a community to live. So secondary roads play a key factor in people deciding to move into a community or set up a business in a community. And of course, with economic viability, a strong economy in small communities, there is a larger tax base, which gives the government coffers more money to enable us to continue with maintenance or preventative programs with our infrastructure. So is there that type of consideration taken into all of the costs and all of the formulas that the department uses to determine whether or not a road can get resurfaced or rehabilitated?
Call on the Honourable Minister of Economic Development on introduction.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and I want to thank the honourable member for yielding the floor in order that we might introduce some guests who have joined us in the Speaker's Gallery, and they are with our Speaker and the Clerk of the House, and they are from the Legislative Assembly of Northern Ireland, and we're very pleased to have them with us this afternoon, Mr. Chairman. And joining us is Mr. William Hay, who is the MLA and the Speaker of the Northern Ireland Assembly, and he's Chairman of the Northern Ireland Assembly Commission, and he's a member of the Democratic Unionist Party. Also, Mr. Stephen Mottray was MLA, member of the Northern Ireland Assembly Commission, Democratic Unionist Party. Mr. Paul Butler, MLA, member of the Northern Ireland Assembly Commission and the Sinn Féin Party. and the Reverend Dr. Robert Coulter, MLA, member of the Northern Ireland Assembly Commission and Ulster Unionist Party, Mr. Sean Neeson, MLA, who is a member of the Northern Ireland Assembly Commission, and he is a member of the Alliance Party. With them, our commission staff, Mr. Tony Logue, Clerk, Assembly Commission, Mr. Francis Lenigan, Private Secretary to the Speaker, Mr. Hugh Wittes, Legal Advisor of the Assembly Secretariat, and from the Ottawa staff, Mr. Chair, Ms. Daniel Labonte, Visit Coordinator, Ms. Catherine Mathieu, Logistics Officer, and Ms. Kellyanne Benoit, Protocol Officer. And perhaps, Mr. Chair, I could take a moment and explain to our visitors that we are currently considering the estimates of the Department of Transportation and Infrastructure renewal, and this is a time when the Assembly is in the Committee of the Whole stage, and members of the opposition are allotted certain blocks of time in which they're able to question the minister, and the minister has with him key members of his staff to assist in the explanation of the numbers or policies related to the estimates. And this, of course, once every department has been dealt with the exception of one, in this instance. Then, then, of course, all of those spending resolutions are assembled, and they constitute the supply unto Her Majesty for the expenditures of the coming year. So we're very pleased to have you join us this afternoon. We hope that you enjoy your visit to Nova Scotia. This is as you would know by now, the oldest assembly in Canada, and we are celebrating the 250th anniversary of democracy in the province of Nova Scotia. And we're delighted to have you with us this afternoon, and we wish you well in your visit. Thank you for joining us. Please.
Thank you, Minister. And the Honourable Minister of Transportation and Infrastructure Renewal.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and welcome to our guests. It's a privilege to have you here. And the honourable member that introduced you didn't get a chance to tell you who it was that would not be not be appearing. I think he deliberately left that out. Anyway, what's that? Oh. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Anyway, back to the honourable member's question. I guess the question was: Are there opportunities for outside the general determination of which roads are paved and how what processes are determined that we use in that particular road? Are there opportunities for extenuating circumstances or other considerations that could be given in regards to paving a specific road? And I would say the answer is yes. And I'll give an example. The honourable member asked, for example, around could be for economic reasons, and I'm sure the department would take that into consideration. I'm not sure, it was about 2 years ago, I believe, that the Department of Tourism embarked upon a task force of sorts, which included Department of Transportation. And in their deliberations, they actually, part of that was in regards to transportation initiatives throughout the province and how that affected tourism, for example. And I know that part of their recommendations were specific roads in the province, which included Peggy's Cove and the Cabot Trail. And I believe there was 2 or 3 other roads I remember reading. But anyway, those are 2 roads that, in fact, after 8 years, the Peggy's Cove Road with 8 kilometres of paving being done this year will actually complete that whole project, I think, of around 60 kilometres. So that's kind of an area where you would see that we're specific to an industry, tourism, Peggy's Cove being as popular as it is, and you know, knowing and understanding that really when you start work on a highway road like that, you really need to continue to work on it till you actually finish the project. And I'm glad to say that project will be finished this year. So there are circumstances. I know the Cabot Trail is another one that I hear a lot about. And I'm pleased to say that, we will be doing work on the Cabot Trail. It will be an annual program that will take place till we get that work done. People come from all over the world to go into to Cape Breton, the Highlands of Cape Breton. Cabot Trail is famous everywhere, and we need to do all we can to ensure that we bring those roads up to a condition where not only for local traffic, for residents, for business, but also for tourists who come here to see this beautiful province of ours, that they have good roads to travel on. And I want to continue to say that I am very proud that we've been able over the last number of years to increase the budget to where I believe it's, we'll be able to see some great results as the amount of work that's being done. And absolutely, every riding, including my own, there are lots of roads that I'd love to see in my own done that should be done and need to be done. I know the honourable member has them in her riding as well, and she's mentioned it to me. And there will always be that need, and we need to ensure that we get a good amount of capital money in our budgets to address that. So there will always be a need, and we'll never be able to do enough each year. But I really do believe that with the amount of dollars we've been able to put into our capital budget the last few years, that it goes a long way to bring our roads up to a standard that people expect, both residents and those who visit us alike. Thank you.
Honourable member for Queens.
Thank you. And I would just like to respectfully remind the Minister of the many secondary roads in some of the communities in the riding of Queens where economic viability and growth is just so important. And as much as I love the area of Peggy's Cove, I grew up in that area and I still have family in that area and visit it frequently. And absolutely it's an important part of the province, as is the Cabot Trail. But some of the communities that I see as vitally important to the riding in Queens and with the potential of growth includes the communities of Petite Riviere, which is on the Lighthouse route, the community of Port Medway, which is on the Lighthouse route, the community of Southwest Port Mattoon, which is on the Lighthouse route. Also, I'd like to mention Vugler's Cove, which is part of, it is part of the Lighthouse route as well. It comes up from Petite Riviere and it connects back onto the 103, up through East Port Medway and down again through Port Medway. So, that's a vital link to the Lighthouse route for the riding of Queens and for the rest of the province, and linking tourists from Peggy's Cove right straight through to Yarmouth if they wanted to travel that beautiful route. I also want to remind the Minister that the communities of Westfield in North Queens and the community of West Caledonia is vitally important as well to that area of my riding, and also the community of Kempt. And I just want to make mention that West Caledonia and Kempt are border Kejimkujik National Park. And this year, for the first time, we are hosting a festival in Keji. It's called the Tent Dwellers Festival, and it started last week and it was kicked off last week, and it will go until October of this year. And so part of the attraction for tourists will be, over the coming months, Keji being the highlight of that festival. And so Kempt, the roads coming into Keji, and it is part of the number 8 highway. Kempt is on the number 8. So I would encourage the Minister to continue on with the projects on Route 8, but West Caledonia Road is vitally important too. So I just wanted to remind the Minister of those community roads that I have been advocating for in the past 2 years. But I want to move on to some other questions. And one suggestion that has come to me over the last couple of years, and certainly it's one that I have thought of myself as a need in this province along our 100 series highways, and that is the need for rest areas. A place where a tourist or a visitor or someone traveling from one end of the province to the other, and there's no place to pull off on the 103. There's not many areas to pull off on the number 104, the 107, the 101. And if a visitor isn't sure when they're going to get to the next restroom, for example, or a place just to pull off and maybe, sit for 15 or 20 minutes before they continue on. Has the province or has the department ever considered maybe clearing off a section every so many, perhaps every 45 minutes to an hour of travel, where there would be a pull-off stop for visitors in the province.
The Honourable Minister of Transportation and Infrastructure Renewal.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the member opposite for the question. And those are very important questions. I'd like to start by saying, the member would appreciate this as well. You know, since we started the deliberations and the estimates on transportation, we talked about repaving 100 series highways. We've talked about actually twinning highways. We talked about paving gravel roads. We talked about road beds. We've talked about paving of routes and trunks and secondary roads. So there's a wide variety of need in this province. There's no question about it. I did want to say as well that, as the member would know, there are two contracts out this year on number 8. I believe around the Liverpool-Caledonia area. There's 8 kilometres. I think there's 10 on number 8 farther down into Annapolis. So those two sections are going ahead this year. But again, you know, with such a great demand, it's how do you say which area, which piece of road is actually the most important road in your riding? I mean, you and I, the member and I have talked about it. It's very difficult to do that. And all you can do is develop a list of the ones that are most important to you. Several roads that are most important in your riding that you hear from people, and you know, based on all the things the Honourable member talked about, whether it's for local residents. And I've said the other day that in my own riding I have some small museums on some secondary roads. That those roads are very important to those individuals who work so hard, volunteering their time to build these museums. Minooty is a good example. My area, talked about it to the Minister of Health, with a strong French connection there, Francophone connection, and they've done a tremendous amount of work. And they have a one-room schoolhouse, they have a church and a museum there. And you know, the road down through there was just deplorable. People from all over the world would come there because of the heritage. So when you look at that road, and I know you had the same, and the Honourable member has the same in her riding, when you look at that road, say versus a route or a trunk that has a lot more traffic, and maybe does, maybe lead to from one community to another. Some people wouldn't see the justification, for example, of paving one over the other, when really the Honourable member knows that there is a need, and certainly requires the attention of the department. But again, very difficult to determine which road do you do first. I mean, you have to start somewhere. And I will say that I know in my own situation, and I'm sure a lot of members will feel the same way. If the department is able to identify a road that needs to be repaved, and it's say 14 kilometres long, and you're going to do 6 or 7 kilometres on it this year, I would hope that we'd see the following section done the following year to finish that, as opposed to jumping all over the place. And the other thing that was brought up, I want to mention as well, that was brought up during the estimates, was whether we could actually decrease the size of projects. So instead of making that 14 kilometres, 2 7s, could you actually make it, could you make it 3 4s and a 2 or whatever? But what that does, it drives the cost up. So it's really important for the department to get as long a stretch as we possibly can with the budget we have, and try to finish those projects. I would think over a several-year plan, whether it's 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, or 5 years. Or in the case of Peggy's Cove, actually turns out to be 8 years. In regards to the issue of pull-offs or places for the public to pull off, to whether it's for scenic views or whether it's for just to stop to get a rest area, again, when the department considers, we have to consider obviously the issue around safety. Again, I'll use an example in my own area. I know we're a development association in one particular area, Route 209. They actually, through their associations, through some funds they had, actually developed a pull-off area, very scenic area, which wasn't done when the road was actually put through there. But again, it all comes down to funding. It comes down to the availability of having the funds to be able to not only pave that road but possibly do like the Honourable member's asking. I know something you asked here in the House was around areas on highways for bicycle traffic, and I know the Honourable member asked about that, and I know it's an important issue to her, and that she's raised it in this House. I believe in the St. Anne's area, for example, where we have a project underway in the St. Anne's area where we're actually allowing for a lane for bicycle traffic, as a project to try it, and on the paved portion for bicycle traffic. But again, we can't do that all over the province for all kinds of reasons. Sometimes the roads aren't wide enough to allow for that, so maybe it's not safe. It may be in an area where the road itself, maybe because of whether it's quite hilly or twisty or whatever, it may not be conducive to that type of traffic. But we are going to, in the department, as the member asked me about it, I know back a few months ago, we in the department are looking at, when we are doing repaving and look at road construction, we're looking at opportunities to actually put those bicycle routes in where we possibly can. Again, it won't be in every time we pave a road or build a road, but we're going to try to do it in some areas. And I will say, the honourable member, we'll take that under consideration, your request about rest areas or opportunities for the public to pull off, or maybe for scenic opportunities or for information. But again, keeping in mind that we have so much money in our budget, and we're trying to do the best we can with in regards to giving. And again, I mentioned the other day here where we have provincial responsibility. There'll be paving tenders in every one of the members' ridings where we have provincial responsibility, and we're trying to make those dollars stretch as far as we can. Again, keeping in mind that we want to get good value for the dollar. Back to what I said earlier about reviewing the processes we presently have in place, and so it's all a matter of priorities and a matter of taking the available dollars and doing the best we can with them. And I think the department does a good job of that. And but anyway, I will take the honourable members' suggestions under consideration and certainly discuss it within the department.
Thank you. The chair recognizes the honourable member for Queens.
Thank you. I'm going to move the topic to public transportation in the province and the department's role in assisting with developing public transportation throughout the province. And I know that the department has taken up some of the challenge. However, I'm not sure if it's enough of a challenge or enough of a role that the department is playing in building a public transportation system across the province. And we all know the importance of having public transportation grow outside of the HRM area and of course be improved in the HRM area, but certainly there are a lot of underserviced areas throughout the province. There is a lack of public transportation in a lot of rural areas across the province, and we've talked a lot about public transportation and the need for in this House through question period, through members bringing it up to various ministers and vice versa. We all know the importance of seeing public transportation being developed because it is essential to reduce our emissions, reducing greenhouse gases, to try and get a handle on climate change that is happening rapidly. And we are seeing the results of that climate change picking up pace and the difference that we're seeing in our environment. And so public transportation across the province is going to be key to addressing our role in addressing that. And of course, the other side of public transportation is basic access, which is an important role for us to play to ensure that all residents have basic access to transportation. And living in rural Nova Scotia, as you know, many people are geographically isolated, especially seniors, and especially those more vulnerable residents who perhaps don't have the means to have a private vehicle, for example. And so transportation is key to one of their needs. To making their life complete. It's as important as good shelter and the basic needs that most of us take for granted. And unfortunately, what we're seeing across the province is a lack of access to transportation for many of our residents. I understand that there has been $3 million in this budget invested into strategic planning around public transportation for the province. I'm not clear whether that comes directly out of the transportation budget or if it's come from Service Nova Scotia budget or if it's part of the Building Canada funds where that $3 million has come from. Wherever that money has come from, what I'm seeing is that it's really not a comprehensive amount of money to see public transportation grow in this province. And I'm wondering, again, first, where the money has come from, out of what part of the budget, and secondly, how the minister sees that money being allocated to municipalities throughout the province. what is the criteria for municipalities to apply for that particular funding? Is there a cap that municipalities, will there be a cap of, say, $50,000 municipalities can apply for to put in a particular strategy? And the other concern I have with not enough money being spread around and what the criteria looks like, but the fact that there seems to be a lot of patchwork initiatives across the province. Conserve Nova Scotia, they have the Green Mobility Strategy. There are the Building Canada funds. Now, whether this $3 million comes out of that or not, I don't know. There's also many other initiatives that groups and organizations have taken on themselves to see public transit or some access to transportation. So what worries me is the fact that there are so many different programs for people to tap into. Several departments have their fingers in the transportation pie or the public transportation pie, and I'm wondering if it would be better matched if these programs were streamlined, and I would suggest streamlined under the Department of Transportation, so that there is obviously the Department of Environment has to have a role in public transportation in terms of the environmental concerns around public transportation, but there are just a lot of initiatives that I think would be more economically feasible if they were streamlined under one particular department as opposed to groups and organizations wondering where they're going to go. So that's a series of questions.
Thank you. The chair recognizes the Honourable Minister of Transportation, Infrastructure Renewal.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to thank the member opposite for the questions. First of all, I can understand fully what the honourable member is saying about transit, because again, I come from a rural area that I listen to her concerns, and I could close my eyes and you could talk about my own constituency. I do want to take a moment to put a little plug in there, because in my area there is no available public transit anywhere in Cumberland County. There's a group it's named Healthy Parsboro. Actually, one of the ladies that serves on that, her name is Dora Fuller, who I know the honourable member for Dartmouth South knows very well. In fact, asks me quite often about her, and she does about the honourable member as well. And who's a tremendous. She's a senior, but I'll tell you, she has more energy than I do. Might not mean a lot, but she does. She's a tremendous worker, and she's been working on just to show you what volunteers can do when it comes to small communities. She bought on her own. She was that strong of a belief that we should have a public transit, particularly for accessible transport in our area, that she went out of her own pocket here about 3 years ago and bought a bus on her own, out of her own dollars, and she was prepared to donate it. She had worked with a committee. She had started a committee actually herself, and her and another gentleman named Paul Hill, who's from Portrayal, they're on the Healthy Parsboro committee. They've been working very hard over the last 3 years, 2.5, 3 years, in regards to public transit, particularly accessible transportation for people of Cumberland South particularly, and again all of Cumberland County, but mainly from the Advocate, Parsboro Shore area down along through Spring Hill and Oxford and up to Amherst, and their dream was that they would provide this transportation, that there would be a bus would make that route each day through on up to Amherst to where the regional hospital is for appointments and all kinds of things, and then it would make the run back home. And again, Dora's been heading this initiative up, worked very hard in the last 3 years, and I can tell you they're very, very, very close to it becoming a reality. They've raised a lot of money on their own. They're doing a lot of great work, and now that group has the opportunity. I won't say that anyway. Hopefully the budget passes tomorrow, this group will have the opportunity through $3 million that we have in our budget this year. That's actually through the Department of Service, Nova Scotia Municipal Relations, to apply for funding to help make that a reality. So that money is in the budget. It's in Service Nova Scotia's budget. The honourable member asked about federal money. Yes, through the Building Canada fund, there is an opportunity. I think it's $37 million over the 7 years. There's $37 million, I believe, available over 7 years from the federal government under the Build Canada fund, in which public transit does qualify as one of the cost-sharing opportunities. But I will say that we have to negotiate those agreements directly with the federal government and put projects forward which they would have to accept. same as all the other projects, the highway projects and other infrastructure projects that we'll put forward in this province over the next 7 years to the federal government. I'm not sure if I answered all my members' questions or not, but basically the province will be involved in that through Service Nova Scotia. The criteria, I believe that, obviously they're going to need a good business plan. They've got to, I'm sure, raise a certain portion of the project monies themselves. They will qualify eventually when we get assigned agreements and get projects approved federally. I'm sure they would qualify for that as well under the Building Canada Fund. And I think that, and I know the honourable members brought that up in the House about the unavailability of transit in rural Nova Scotia. It's become a huge issue. And, we have seniors who, for various reasons, whether it's financial, maybe it's because of health reasons, maybe it's a disability that someone has, that need some sort of transportation. I've had people call my constituency office that can't get to a doctor's appointment because they have no one to take them. We've tried to help them in that regard, but having a regular scheduled accessible bus in a rural community, I'm sure the honourable members and mine as well, would help so many people, and I think it'll go a long way to ensuring that people receive the services in rural Nova Scotia they do. But the answer, I guess, is yes. There will be money available. There is money available in this budget, and I look forward to working with communities, and as I'm sure the honourable member does in her riding, to help make that a reality.
Thank you. The chair recognizes the honourable member for Queens.
Thank you. And I would just like to point out to the minister that we have one of the finest public transportation systems across this province, and it's called the school bus. And every day, 5 days a week, 2, sometimes 3 days, or 3 times a day, our school buses run across this province, and it is one of the finest public transportation systems. And perhaps if someone has the foresight to look at that system and integrate it with a public transportation system that serves more than students across this province, perhaps we can build a strategic public transportation system that actually works, and therefore perhaps we won't have to rely on the goodwill, the good nature of volunteers who are working so hard to make access to transportation to seniors and families who are vulnerable in our communities that don't have access to transportation. And I believe that there is a municipality, and I'm forgetting the municipality escapes me, who had brought to council an initiative using the school bus system as a model, or integrating the school bus with public transportation needs in their community. It may be Pictou for some reason. I'm thinking I'm not sure, but I think that municipality, whichever one it is, certainly has a vision for a public accessible transportation system across this province. So I would respectfully suggest to the minister and his department, and also to work closely with the Department of Education, to look at that system that exists here across the province and how can we utilize it better. Can we? Is it practical? Does it make sense? Is it appropriate? Obviously, a lot of our school buses wouldn't fit the bill in terms of perhaps the size of the buses, and there would have to be some upgrades. But the system is in place, and so I think if we can expand on at least that model, we could move forward with a viable system across this province. I want to talk about active transportation. Active transportation, there are a lot of the Ecology Action Centre and other groups across the province, TRACS, are moving forward with active transportation initiatives, which includes encouraging the department to move forward with the construction of bike lanes, especially around our lighthouse routes. And I'm hearing that some bike lanes are already being moved forward in some communities, and that's a good thing. And I think to work closely with those groups that are encouraging more active lifestyles through active